Audrey Musgrave, what questions should I ask a startup company who is going through B round of funding? Should I be concerned about the company staying afloat? Awesome question. I'm going to give you a couple things here. Number one, I gave you 4 categories of company types and what's going to happen as a result of COVID-19, right? The coronavirus is going to affect different companies a different way. So I'm not going to recap all what I said a few minutes ago. Check that out, zip back to that, and figure out which one of the 4 you're in. Now, what questions should you be asking a startup company? So I'm going to give you, I could go all day on this one. And I think for those of you that saw me demo that very quickly, the how to evaluate small to medium-sized companies, that specialty session that I showed you in there, that's exactly what this is. And for companies that are in the infancy stages, or small organizations that are privately held, or medium-sized companies that are privately held, or even large companies that's just good tactical stuff. But for startups, here is your acid test for startups. The thing that I am most concerned about, so let's just say, Audrey, sake of argument, that one of the 4 categories, you were in one of the first 2 categories that I mentioned, that they were either already equipped to go remotely and they slid on over when COVID-19 came and they were business as usual, okay? Or they are in a good industry, might not have been set up to operate remotely. However, I would imagine startups that are coming to fruition right now are all pretty much, most of them are going to be equipped to operate remotely. All right, so let's say we give you the benefit of the doubt. Now move forward to when you start evaluating startups. The single greatest question you could ever ask to a startup company is, can you explain to me what your goals are for the next few years, 3 years, let's say, maybe 3 to 5. Tell me what your goals are. I almost don't need to ask any other question to know if I'm going to want to work there. Why would I be so confident if I asked that question, and based on that answer alone, would I know that this would be a good company or not? Now, maybe I'm exaggerating for effect, but go with me on this. When you ask, and I'm talking about the executives in a startup, okay? Now I'm talking about the CEO and the COO and the CFO, and I'm talking about the big dogs. If they're going to answer you one of a couple ways. If they say, our goal is in the next 3 to 4 or 5 years to build this up and then sell it, I'm out. I'd get up and walk out right then. No exaggeration. I literally would, because that's their mentality. That's how they're going to run their business. And their focus is going to be on all the wrong stuff. And they're going to build a crappy company that isn't going to sell. And they're going to let a lot of people go because they're not growing fast enough. Okay? Now, the people who are giving them the money, they're going to want a return. Except that the only way to ensure that that return is going to be there is to build a solid organization that's focused on whoever its customers are and making sure that they are building the best in business, best in class, best in industry, best in the world, whatever, at what they're doing. Okay? If that is not their goal, they will not put a solid company together. And remember something, that you are not going to benefit financially nearly as much as the people who took all the risk to actually start this up. They already have Series A funding, right? So they owe somebody. Maybe that's themselves, or maybe it's somebody else, an angel investor. Okay, now I'm going to get B round. Well, the train's already kind of moving, and then the C round will come, right? But I'm telling you, if their focus is solely their EBITDA, you need to run, because they will do things that will constantly be at odds with building a stable company. Because think about it, I have to constantly balance the profit or the revenue or the whatever. And the easiest way to gain profit is you get more revenue, but for startups that's hard, right? So what do? They have to be really smart with the costs. Well, what happens if the revenue's not growing as fast as they want? What do? They get rid of costs. They get rid of people. That's the easiest way to do that, and the fastest way to cut the fat in their mind. When somebody who's building an organization that's going to build the best customer service based on the best product and all that good stuff has to be building for a little bit of a long term. And that has to be their focal point, because the best organizations that then are bought up, sold, or go public all have that solid foundation underneath them. At least nowadays. That was not always the case when you go back to like the tech bubble in 2001. So what are your goals? If they say to you, well, the first thing is we've got to build a solid company. We've got to build a best-in-class product. And the way I see us doing that is this. And then, yeah, you know what? We are taking on investors. Investors do want to get paid back. I am doing this hoping that there will be financial reward at the end. But I know that if I focus on this, it'll be there. Then you're in, right? Then I know what I'm going to ask them. If that's their philosophy, is probably going to be pretty good. It will. But that's I mean, for startups, like that ought to be like number one, first question. Don't ask about the role. I want to know what your goal is, what your strategy to get there is, what you see the obstacles being, what will you do if. There's a lot of that. So then you want to start getting into, what are those challenges? What are the known challenges? What do you think are unknown? And so on. And you want to go through that line. I would not even care what my job would be until I got all that out of the way. So that's where I'd be way over in that direction. I hope that helps. That's a great question.